Hello and welcome to It's a Numbers Game, the podcast for MSP owners and operators who want to understand the numbers, the risks, and the decisions that really drive value in their business. I'm Adam Morris, and as always, I'm joined by Dan Welling. Our guest today is Al Lakhani. Al is the founder and CEO of ID, that's spelled IDEE, a cybersecurity company focused on what they call MFA2, a fundamentally different approach to authentication that aims to eliminate credential phishing and MFA bypass attacks entirely. Al has spent over 2 decades in technology and security, working across enterprise, cloud, and identity architectures. He's well known for challenging conventional thinking in cybersecurity, particularly the industry's reliance on detection and user behavior rather than prevention. And more recently, he's been working closely with MSPs and channel partners to help them reduce account takeover risk and simplify security without degrading user experience. So in this conversation, we dig into why traditional MFA is no longer fit for purpose, how attackers are bypassing it at scale, and what a prevention-first approach could mean for MSPs, not just technically, but commercially. So whether you're responsible for protecting your own business, your clients, or both, this is a conversation worth listening to.
Al, welcome to the show.
Good evening. Nice to meet you guys.
Good morning, good evening, and good nights. You're currently in Munich, I believe. Yeah.
Germany.
So you're an hour ahead. So yeah, great to have you with us today. And it was really interesting to meet you and some of your colleagues at the recent Brigantia Partner Day in New York. And we arranged this following that meeting, really to satisfy my interest in what you were doing. MFA 2.0. Any more?
Sure. So, we created MFA 2.0 because the current MFA, call it MFA 1.0, doesn't seem to stop any credential phishing attacks. I think you probably have heard it in the news over the last about 30 days. There have been 30 major breaches by this group called Shiny Hunters, all Salesforce. So these attackers are very lazy. It's like, we're just going to attack Salesforce. So they have done this for about 30 companies. And so all of these companies have this old version of MFA. And what we decided to do was to create the next generation of MFA a few years ago. And we are trying to educate the market and thinking, look, there is the old version that doesn't protect you, but the new version will, and it will prevent all these attacks. And that's why I think we met when I was at the Brigantia partner event a few weeks ago. So we are in this convincing people that MFA 2.0 is what they need.
And MFA 1.0, forgive my ignorance, but this is a Microsoft Authenticator and other authenticator apps are available. So what's why are they so easy to breach?
That's a great question. So if you think about all MFA solutions today, all the legacy ones, you need a second device, like a smartphone, right? You have to look up the 6-digit code from your Microsoft Authenticator or Google Authenticator app, or you receive a SMS, or you receive a push. The fundamental problem is that that phone doesn't know it is next to your PC. So that is how attackers get between your PC and your phone. And so you're thinking you're approving something, but you're doing it on the wrong site. And that is the problem with MFA 1.0.
And this would be session hijacking. Is that correct?
Correct. So what ends up happening is you receive a phishing email. It looks legit. We, in fact, purchased a MicrosoftOnline.com domain where instead of online, the L is replaced with a 1. So it looks pretty legit. And you know how users are. They're tired. They're in a rush. They're angry. They click on links and then they just type in their passwords and approve their push. And that's how these attackers steal the credentials, steal the session tokens, and then they can log in without ever authenticating. And they can add other authenticators. So they take over the account, add a new YubiKey to it, take over the account, add a new Microsoft authenticator to it. And they have full access.
Right. And presumably then MFA 2.0 somehow resolves that.
Absolutely. And it's actually not, I love to say I'm not sending rockets to Mars. We have done something very simple. What we have done is we have said, rather than use passwords, let us use something that was actually invented by 3 British cryptographers. It's called public key cryptography. It was actually invented in 1972 at the GCHQ, because at the height of Cold War, the UK and the US wanted to communicate with their spies around the world, and they wanted to make sure that this communication was secure. And so they created this public key cryptography where the two sides don't have to meet to be able to exchange confidential information. And so we use this technique and got rid of passwords. And then this technique, what it allows you to do is it allows you to tie your identity to a device. So that's why I say we are not sending rockets to Mars. We are just saying that, for example, Dan, you have 3 devices. The identity is tied to those 3 devices, which means all other devices, if Dan tries to log in, can't be Dan. So we have kind of just flipped it.
Right.
And that prevents all credential phishing and MFA bypass attacks.
And presumably also not that it wouldn't totally remove, but what about things like conditional access, sort of based on geographic boundaries? If I've got my device with me, I can log in anywhere in the world, right? Do I not
Correct.
need more conditional access for that purpose anymore?
Be honest. When was the last time you actually felt in control of your MSP finances? The late nights chasing invoices, the cash flow stress, constant pressure to grow profit, it can feel never-ending. At MSP Finance Team, we've built the complete outsourced finance solution just for MSPs. From day-to-day bookkeeping to annual tax, management reporting, and full virtual finance team support, everything you need to run a profitable, stress-free business is under one roof. So whether you want to regain control, free up personal time, or finally build towards a real financial freedom, we can help you get there faster. Visit mspfinanceteam.com and discover how our outsourced finance team can help you stop surviving and start thriving.
Absolutely. And this is what Adam and I were talking about before you joined. You know, if you think about authentication, it started with passwords, and passwords were never meant to be a security feature. They were meant to do time sharing at MIT back in the 60s when you had the punch cards. And so we put on so many Band-Aids, and I think conditional access is an excellent Band-Aid. And the companies that do this, I'll pick on Microsoft. There are several companies that do this, not just Microsoft, but I'll pick on Microsoft. They do it because they're like, I don't trust that this authentication is legit. So now I'm going to limit it by IP address, by geography, by what device you're using, behavioral. Some companies also do this behavior, how you are typing and all things like that. And the way we look at it is, well, if I know that your identity cannot be stolen, cannot be extracted from these 3 devices, and these devices are trusted and set up using zero trust methodology, then I don't have to worry about all the other billions of devices in the world. They're all wrong automatically. And so conditional access, I think, is a Band-Aid. And plus, not to mention, the user experience is horrible. Like, you're about to log in and then it says, nope, sorry, we have sent another push on your phone, please approve. Or, you know, please reach out to your admin. Your account is blocked.
Mhm.
These are, from a user's perspective, the UX is horrible.
Yeah.
That's all we're fixing.
And yeah, I have been on a trip before and realised I couldn't actually log in. And thankfully, I had a backdoor method. But yeah, otherwise I'd locked myself out, or would have done for that trip. And okay, so that sounds great. But what happens if someone takes my device? We're back to that risk now, aren't we? Yeah.
So if somebody steals your device, they still need to know how to unlock it. And I'm sure you're familiar with, for iPhone or Android or whatever, you have this setup where if you, after the first 3 wrong tries, you had to wait for 5 minutes. And after the fourth, 15 minutes. And after 10, it wipes the device.
Yeah.
So first of all, you can't, unlike passwords, there is a limit to how many times you can be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
With the password, you can be wrong as many times as you want, depending on what you're using. The second thing is, if I steal your password right now, you have no idea it's stolen.
Mm-hmm.
But if I steal your device, you'll be like, wait, where's my phone? And then you can deactivate it. So the way to think of this is the vast majority, like 99.9999% of all attacks in the world, they are executed remotely. And obviously, if you're pissed off the, Russian mafia, they want to fly to you and steal your laptop. Well, I think they'll just put a gun to your head and you'd unlock it. So, we don't solve that attack vector. If somebody's really pissed off at you, wants to get on a plane and fly to Bath and if he ask you to unlock, then sorry, we can't help you. But any remote attack, we stop.
Yeah. And by the way, conditional access wouldn't help you there either, because you'd be in Bath. So that to be allowed first. And yeah, okay, right. So, and I guess with all of these tactics, techniques, they all have situations where they can be bypassed, but it's about minimizing the probability and more than the possibility in it's such a minimal level that actually it's unlikely. And okay, so that sounds really interesting. So
I may add one thing,
please.
So the reason why these attacks are successful is because businesses rely on phishable factors. So if you're registering, you have to use an SMS to set up your device. Well, that's phishable. If you're adding another device, you receive a push to approve. Well, that's phishable. If you're using a password from a password manager, that is phishable. So what we have done is 2 things. We have said, we will not use any phishable factors in our registration, authentication, authorization, adding a device flows. Just will not happen. There is no ability for anybody to do that. And then the second thing we do is we use what's called transitive trust, which is a zero trust concept. So the chain of trust is never broken. And with those 2 things, you are able to create what we call phishing proof. So I'm sure you've heard of phishing resistant.
Mm-hmm.
So we are the only ones that use the term phishing proof, because we have customers that tell us for the last 3 years that they've been using us, they have never been phished. And that is because of our architecture is such that we prevent all credential phishing attacks, all password-based attacks, and all MFA bypass attacks. And we have no AI in our company. We don't use AI. We don't do detection. We focus on prevention.
Okay. And presumably then we'll get onto the commercials in a moment, but if I can't be phished, then I don't need security awareness training now.
Who doesn't like good compliance training?
Mm-hmm.
If you step back, I joke about this all the time. Antivirus industry was created because Microsoft decided, I'm going to create a crappy OS. If you think about authentication, you have to scan emails. Well, you scan emails so they don't get phishing links sent to you, right? Well, if you can't steal your credentials, then do you need to scan emails that are for credential phishing?
Mm-hmm.
Conditional access. I mean, Microsoft and many companies do a great job of saying, I'll give you the basic, but if you want conditional access, you need a P2 plan. You need Intune Suite. You need Entra Suite. So I think there's a conspiracy in the industry. Especially if you go to InfoSec, right? Everybody wants all these bells and whistles to make you feel safe because we are not solving the core fundamental problem. There's only 3 ways you can attack a company: steal credentials, exploit a vulnerability, and have a backdoor. Backdoor is easy. Don't use products from untrusted companies. So you're left with 2. Did you know that 90% of all the time IT departments spend, MSPs spend, is on credentials, resetting passwords, setting up MFA. I got a new phone. I got to transfer the MFA, all of those things. And 98% of all attacks are credential phishing attacks. So imagine if you took that away, your IT team spends time on vulnerability fixing, which is patch management and mitigation of zero-day vulnerabilities. Like imagine how much simplified the IT department's job would be, and what would InfoSec look like?
And sometimes when it's that transformational, it's then the turkeys voting for Christmas. But if we're freeing time to do better things more thoroughly, then absolutely, there's a good story to tell there. So I guess that then leads me to my next question, which is, why is everyone not doing this already? What resistance are you finding going out to the market? What's your experience been?
So I think it's education. We'll pick on Microsoft again because they mentioned this 2 years ago, and then 4 years ago they said this again. It's like, if you have MFA, it prevents 99% of attacks. And that is just not true. The study that they did was it prevents 99% of attacks when those attacks previously were password-based attacks. So adding MFA stops the password-based attacks, which is true. And, MFA version 1.0, the push, the OTP, SMS, it was created to prevent password-based attacks. So that is completely true. But I think what people have read is, well, it protects 99% of the attacks. I'll deploy MFA, now I'm safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you got a chance to see it at the Brigantia event on stage. I did an MFA bypass attack on Microsoft Authenticator. So, and I've been doing this attack every year at InfoSec for the last 3 years. And 2 years ago, I was right next to the Microsoft booth. And by the way, I pick on Microsoft, but this is a problem with Okta, with Google Authenticator, with Duo, all of them. It's the fundamental problem. If this device doesn't talk locally to your PC, there's an adversary in the middle of it. So that's, I think, the simple point, which is, if you think about the industry, there is a lot of misinformation in it. And so what we are doing is we are saying, and this is also the reason why we work with Brigantia and we're a channel first company, because this kind of education has to be done en masse. You can't do it a company at a time. But when we pitch, or our partners pitch, 80% of the companies go for a POC,
mm-hmm.
which is a ridiculously high conversion number. And so I think it is changing. It's slowly changing, and it will change. I mean, in the last 30 days, we have had so many. I can give you the names. These are, let's see, here they are. I mean, these are the names of, large companies. Let's see. Chanel, Gucci, Balenciaga, Alexander McQueen. Then we got Cisco Systems. I mentioned Qantas, Pandora, like Allianz. Like these are not, companies that don't have cybersecurity experts.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people are starting to ask, what the heck am I doing?
Yeah. Yeah. Because we can spend all this money and still be breached. Is it unwinnable?
I think that is actually a really good point, Dan, which is it is winnable. And I think when cybersecurity experts go to the CFO and say, give me more money, if you can't stop these attacks, if you cannot make the company safe, then why would they give you more money?
Mm-hmm.
At some point in time, they're going to say, well, okay, you're reducing the risk, but we're still getting breaches. And the industry needs to start thinking about prevention. And that was also one of the points that I made in our email, where I said that I think if you protect existing customers using solutions like MFA 2.0, you actually prevent churn. And it's a clear, strong competitive advantage for MSPs saying, look, I am giving you peace of mind. Your account cannot be taken over, which is a very powerful message, rather than saying, well, we'll try to not have a breach.
Al, could you, fascinating, and I'm trying to let it sink in, and my brain is kind of like firing away, trying to make sense of this. I'm interested in the kind of sort of demographics of this. So is it just your business that's currently pushing this tech? Are there others pushing the same thing right now?
So we have lots of competitors. The MFA market is full of companies that are providing solutions. And I would break that up into three parts. There is Microsoft Authenticator. It is the 900-pound gorilla. So that is one group or one piece of the pie. The other piece of the pie is all of these other solutions that have a push-based approach. So Duo, Okta, Verify, you name it. And then the third group are the emerging ones, such as ourselves, that are saying this whole thing is broken. We built this on a blank sheet of paper. We didn't have any, what do you call, legacy or baggage that we have to deal with. Tech debt, I believe is what we call it. And so there are a few companies that do this. So we do it. There's another company called Beyond Identity that does a great job. So there is quite a few companies, or at least, so far 2 companies that I know of that are really focused on MFA 2.0. And the big difference between us and these other companies that are talking about MFA 2.0 or selling MFA 2.0 is we don't believe that you should have to install any software or hardware or any device to use MFA 2.0. Versus companies like Beyond Identity and others, they're saying you must install an agent. You must install software. And we don't believe in that, given what happened with CrowdStrike 2 years ago. Or last year, it was, right? CrowdStrike, the big meltdown was last year.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to think of a single point of failure as a core concept. So there are companies that are doing this. So Microsoft and the Duos and the Oktas of the world, they're saying, we are going to use Microsoft Copilot, Security Copilot. We're going to do analytics and we're going to do detection. That's kind of the world that they are in. And detection can never be 100%. So we don't believe in that approach.
So fundamentally, this is a difference of opinion. Yeah. So
Yes,
Microsoft,
yeah. You can definitely say that.
Microsoft have a few people that probably know what they're talking about, and you have a few people that know what you're talking about.
Microsoft has many that know their to do.
Yeah,
We're small.
Exactly. So this is clearly complicated and not necessarily as simple as you make out. And so one could argue that at surface level, there's a lot of details that go through here. And presumably, if we had a Microsoft person in the room, they would presumably voice their own opinions and their own thoughts about this tech. So I guess I'm just interested in sort of trying to understand the landscape, because it sounds like this could be something completely disruptive, right? Which is, I guess, where you're positioning your technology.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me hearing you speak is, well, wow, this does absolutely sound amazing. Why haven't I heard about it before? Why aren't there more people doing it? And but of course, maybe people have said that to Tesla back in 2011, when they were creating their first cars. So yeah, no.
Can I add one thing to that? You're absolutely right. It is a different approach. And the approach, and as MSPs that are listening to this, they have to decide, do they want a prevention approach or a detection approach? Because we will never do detection. And given how much these companies have spent on AI, they will never go to prevention. I think it's, I don't know, electric car versus gasoline car, kind of they're two different approaches.
Yeah. And yet BMW back in 2016, 17, when Tesla's Model 3 was being released, didn't have an electric equivalent. So they were still pushing their 3 Series, saying you have to wait 6 months for your Tesla, but ours is available now. But of course, everybody knew that BMW were building an electrical capability, because it was obvious that's the direction of travel.
It is needed.
So, well, I'm not sure what to take from this, but yeah, it's a fascinating journey. But surely, ultimately, this is going to be based on what the consumer wants, right? And if the consumer wants to not be hacked in the first
I think you're absolutely
rather
right.
than being hacked and being detected, surely that's going to
I think you're absolutely right.
drive the outcomes.
I think you're absolutely right. And let me maybe put it this way. If Microsoft took their top 10, 50, 100, I don't know how many engineers they need, and said, do what ID does, we would definitely be out of a job. There is no doubt about it. And like I said, we're not sending rockets to Mars.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't believe Microsoft will do that. I don't believe Duo will do that, because they're tech debt. And what I mean by that is their philosophy is centralization. Our philosophy is decentralization. Their philosophy is detection. Our philosophy is prevention. I'll give you a very simple example. You guys know passkeys, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a wonderful standard. And about 2 years ago or 3 years ago, one of the updates allowed you to store your passkeys in your password manager. And I was very vocal about this at that time. I still am. And I am saying, no, passkeys should be hardware bound. That's the whole point of public key cryptography. But they allow it because 1Password pushed for it, for Apple pushed for it. And I just think it is wrong. It is just fundamentally wrong. But that's how they think, right? That's how Microsoft thinks. I have an Entra, like Active Directory was centralized. So they built Entra. Well, that is centralized. So now we are going to create passkeys, and we're going to store them in Microsoft Authenticator, which is centralized. So, that's the mentality. And I think, as you rightfully put it, and I love the electric car analogy because I'm a big fan of Tesla. And I think only time will tell. And I think consumers vote with their feet or their dollars, right? And I think we will see that.
Yeah, really interesting. And you're both Tesla fans on the so I'm gonna divert us back to petrol. And is it true that Porsche are actually going back to petrol from electric? But I'll just throw that grenade in there. And
synthetic fuel. It's no longer petrol.
Okay, right. So a difference of opinion. And I could probably talk to you for about another hour on this topic. We're very close to time. I do have one final question, which is also perhaps a lead into the shameless plug that we always offer our guests, which is, if I'm an MSP and I'm listening to this, and it is fascinating, but it's new and it's not without risk of understanding and an adoption. So what's my first step? How do I go from this? My ears have been pricked. How do I now move to you said proof of concept. Is that the first port of call?
Absolutely. So we work very closely with the Brigantia, so reach out to Brigantia. You can also go to our website, which is getidee.com, and you can sign up for a free trial for 14 days. It's super easy. We have great guides. You can play with it for 14 days, as many users as you like. And if you need help, obviously we'll help you set it up. But what I think Brigantia has found, and the reason why they picked us, is because they see that there is a very clear gap that needs to be filled. And as more and more regulations come in for MSPs, DOOR regulations, cyber essentials, etc., they also need to have peace of mind that their accounts are not compromised and their customers' accounts are not compromised. So I think we will see a massive change. I think people will start saying this is enough. We are seeing that, like, we have hundreds of customers now. We are still a very small company, but I think customers are seeing that, okay, I want peace of mind. I don't want to have to worry that I'm on vacation, that somebody compromised my account and now I didn't jump through hoops.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us, and really look forward to seeing you again at the next Brigantia event, I'm sure. And next time Adam and I are in Munich, we'll be sure to stop by and look forward to one of these famous cocktails you were telling us about.
Would love to host you guys at El Tato, absolutely. And we can talk cars, because that is one of my favorite topics.
Do we need to wear the lederhosen?
And no, you don't. Don't be shocked if I do.
It looks kind of fun. Maybe after one or two cocktails.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Val.
Thank you, John. Man. It was great to talk to you.